The Pentagon is preparing to weaponize the ground beneath its enemies. On June 22, 2025, 7 B-2 bombers dropped the largest bombs ever built onto Iran's deepest nuclear facility. For the first time, even that may not have been enough. Iran and North Korea are burying facilities so deep that no existing penetrator can drill deep enough. The answer, if defense community rumors are accurate, is a $4 billion program that triggers localized seismic events to destroy what lies beneath. Join us as we break down what is known about America's most destructive, rumored program. For decades, America held a simple advantage in the air. If a target needed to be destroyed, there was a bomb big enough to reach it. That assumption is dying. Iran's Fordo uranium enrichment plant sits buried beneath a mountain near Qom, tunneled deep into the Zagros range. It was built there for one reason: to survive the largest strike the United States could deliver. And Fordo isn't alone. The Zagros Mountains offer ideal geology for underground hardening. The limestone and dense sedimentary rock layers create natural armor that is difficult to fracture from above. Iranian engineers have spent years exploiting these formations, making geology part of their defensive architecture. Every meter of solid stone above a centrifuge hall is one less meter that American munitions can reach. In late 2024, the Associated Press reported that Iran was accelerating construction on a new facility near Natanz. Satellite imagery showed tunnel complexes going deeper and spreading wider than analysts had expected. Some defense reporting estimates the newest Iranian sites are approaching 800 meters beneath solid mountain rock. That depth places them beyond the reach of every conventional penetrator currently in the American inventory. North Korea has spent even longer mastering the art of the underground. Pyongyang's tunneling programs date back decades, and its engineers have shared hardening techniques with Iran through years of quiet collaboration. Both nations have reached the same conclusion: the deeper you bury your most critical facilities, the safer they are from anything that falls out of the sky. The math is brutal and simple. The deeper they dig, the harder they are to kill, and they aren't stopping. Western intelligence agencies have tracked excavation at multiple Iranian sites through 2025 and into 2026. The Institute for Science and International Security published analysis showing that Natanz's tunnel complex is deeper and larger than previously understood. BBC satellite imagery from early 2026 confirmed ongoing fortification work near nuclear sites. Each new meter of rock represents a direct challenge to American strike planners. The problem has shifted. It's no longer about whether the U.S. can hit a target. It's about whether the U.S. can reach it through the mountain above it. China has also invested heavily in underground hardening across its Western missile complexes and submarine tunnels. The same principle applies worldwide. When a nation wants to protect its most sensitive military or nuclear assets from aerial attack, it digs. And every time the United States develops a deeper penetrator, the digging goes deeper in response. But here's the part most analysts missed. The race between diggers and bombers has always favored the diggers. Mountain rock is cheap, permanent, and passive. Bombs are expensive, limited in number, and constrained by physics. At some point, the digging wins. That point may already be here. The GBU-57A/B Massive Ordnance Penetrator is the largest conventional bomb in the American arsenal. It weighs 30,000 pounds, carries a GPS guidance package, and Boeing designed it specifically for one mission: reaching hardened, deeply buried targets that no other weapon can touch. The MOP is built around a BLU-127 bomb body wrapped in a hardened steel casing and packed with over 5,000 pounds of high explosive. The weapon uses a combined GPS and inertial navigation system to guide itself onto a precise impact point. Once released from a B-2 Spirit, the MOP falls at terminal velocity and uses sheer mass and hardened structure to punch through layers of concrete, soil, and rock before the fuse detonates the main charge. On June 22, 2025, 7 Northrop B-2 Spirit stealth bombers flew non-stop for roughly 37 hours from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri across the Atlantic and into Iranian airspace. The mission carried the name Operation Midnight Hammer. Those 7 aircraft carried and dropped 14 GBU-57s. 12 of them struck the Fordo uranium enrichment plant. Two more hit the Natanz facility. It was the first time the MOP had ever been used in combat. Analysts believe the MOP penetrates approximately 200 feet of reinforced earth and concrete before detonating. That's a remarkable achievement for any conventional weapon. But 200 feet isn't 800 meters. It isn't even close. The Pentagon knew this gap was coming. In September 2025, the U.S. Air Force awarded a development contract for the next-generation penetrator. The NGP defense contractor, ARA, was selected to lead prototyping work, with initial hardware expected within 24 months. This weapon is intended to replace the GBU-57 and eventually equip both the B-2 and the newer B-21 Raider. Defense reporting from Interesting Engineering suggests the NGP could carry a warhead up to 5 times heavier than the current MOP. That's a serious engineering leap, but it's still a penetrator, and penetrators face a ceiling that engineering alone can't break. Here's why. Doubling a penetrator's mass doesn't double the depth it can reach. Resistance from soil density, concrete reinforcement, and bedrock increases non-linearly with depth. Each additional foot requires exponentially more energy to punch through. Eventually, the math breaks down. No amount of steel and explosive can push a single object through half a mile of mountain. The laws of physics don't bend for bigger warheads. After the June 2025 strikes, the Air Force began restocking its depleted MOP arsenal. The Jerusalem Post reported that 14 weapons were expended in a single night against Iran, a significant fraction of the total inventory. Boeing production lines for weapons this specialized don't spin up overnight. Each unit requires months of precision machining, specialized materials, and testing. The uncomfortable truth is that even the next generation of bunker busters may not be enough. The enemy isn't standing still. They're digging faster than American engineers can build bigger bombs. There's another limitation the Air Force can't easily solve. Only the B-2 Spirit is currently configured to carry the GBU-57. The B-21 Raider will eventually add this capability, but that platform is still working through its own entry into service testing. If a strike against deep targets requires the largest bomb in the arsenal, and only a handful of aircraft on Earth can deliver it, the operational flexibility of American air power is constrained in ways that planners do not like to advertise. The idea of making the ground itself a weapon isn't new. During World War II, British aeronautical engineer Barnes Wallis faced a similar problem. The Nazi regime had buried its most important industrial and military targets beneath thick concrete and solid rock. Standard bombs bounced off or exploded too early. Wallis designed the Tall Boy and the Grand Slam. These weren't ordinary gravity bombs. They were massive, hardened weapons that used kinetic energy and delayed fuses to transmit shock waves deep into the earth beneath a target. The goal wasn't to hit the bunker directly. It was to make the ground collapse around it and swallow whatever was inside. The Tall Boy weighed 12,000 pounds. The Grand Slam weighed 22,000 pounds. Both were the largest conventional weapons of their era, and both proved that you don't always need to drill through a mountain to destroy what's inside it. Sometimes you can make the mountain do the work for you. Tall Boy bombs were used to destroy the German battleship Tirpitz, hiding in a Norwegian fjord, and to collapse railway viaducts and V-weapon sites across occupied Europe. The Grand Slam was so large that only one British bomber, the Lancaster, could lift it. These weapons demonstrated that shock waves traveling through bedrock could achieve what direct hits could not. That logic has sat dormant for 80 years, but the physics never changed, and the strategic problem has only grown worse. According to sources inside the defense and testing communities, the United States is now exploring a radically different approach to the same problem. Instead of building a bigger penetrator, the rumored program aims to weaponize seismic stress itself. The concept isn't to punch a hole through 800 meters of rock. It's to trigger a localized seismic event that collapses the facility from the inside out. The modern approach would differ from Wallis's kinetic weapons in one critical way. Where the Tall Boy used a single massive impact, the rumored seismic weapon would use a sequence detonation pattern designed to couple energy into local fault lines and bedrock structures. The goal isn't to crack the surface above a bunker. It's to make the rock around the bunker fracture, shift, and crush the chamber from all sides at once. The price tag attached to this program is $4 billion. That figure isn't for a single bomb. It's for an entire weapons system. The package would include specialized delivery aircraft, advanced geophysical surveying capabilities, precision seismic modeling software, and the warhead itself. You can't simply drop a seismic weapon onto a grid coordinate. You need to know exactly where the regional fault lines run, how the rock strata are layered, and precisely where the underground chamber sits within that geology. This is why the program demands such extraordinary investment. Before the weapon can even be aimed, geophysical survey aircraft must map the target area in detail. Seismic sensors must record natural microquakes to understand local stress patterns. Supercomputers must model how shock waves from a surface detonation would propagate through the specific geology surrounding the facility. The weapon itself is only the final component of a system that turns geology into a targeting computer. Only 2 aircraft in the U.S. inventory can carry a weapon of this scale. The B-2 Spirit has already proven it can fly 37 hours non-stop to deliver a strike inside Iran. The B-21 Raider, still entering service, is expected to carry even heavier payloads over longer ranges with improved stealth. Either platform could serve as the delivery method. One strategic advantage of the seismic approach is that it sidesteps the nuclear policy debate. For years, defense analysts have discussed nuclear bunker busters as a theoretical option for targets beyond conventional reach. But using nuclear weapons, even low-yield tactical versions, carries enormous political, environmental, and diplomatic consequences that make them almost unusable in practice. A conventional weapon that achieves similar destructive effects through seismic propagation would offer a capability that military planners could actually employ without triggering a nuclear exchange. What makes this concept truly stand out is that it rewrites the fundamental geometry of bunker busting. A penetrator can only go as deep as its mass and velocity allow. A seismic weapon is limited only by the geology it can exploit. If the fault lines cooperate and the modeling is accurate, the weapon doesn't need to touch the target. It only needs to make the ground around it fail. America maintains several test ranges capable of handling weapons on this scale. White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, the Nevada test site, and the restricted airspace around Tonopah have all hosted developmental programs that the public never hears about until years later. These ranges have supported black projects for decades. The Nevada test site hosted hundreds of nuclear detonations during the Cold War, leaving underground shafts and instrumentation tunnels that still exist today. Tonopah housed the F-117 Nighthawk program for years before the stealth fighter was publicly acknowledged. White Sands regularly handles missile tests and exotic weapons prototypes. If a $4 billion seismic weapon is being developed, these are the places where it would be tested. Seismic monitoring stations across the globe are always listening. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization runs a network of sensors designed to catch underground nuclear tests. A conventional seismic weapon wouldn't register as a nuclear detonation on those sensors. It would register as a small earthquake. And that's exactly what it's supposed to be. This creates a natural cover story. The United States experiences thousands of minor seismic events every year, from tectonic movement, mining operations, and oil extraction. A carefully timed test series could blend into that background noise, especially if the tests were conducted in geologically active regions where small tremors are expected. The testing process for a weapon like this would be extensive and carefully controlled. Engineers would begin with repeated detonations in specific geologic formations to map how shock waves propagate through different types of rock and soil. They would measure how bedrock fractures under controlled stress, how fault lines respond to sequenced explosions, and how underground structures collapse when the ground around them shifts. Once the data is collected, the program would move to scaled-up tests against simulated underground facilities. Concrete bunkers buried in known geologic conditions would serve as proxies for the real targets. Each test would refine the modeling, adjust the explosive sequencing, and improve the accuracy of the seismic prediction. If those tests succeed, the strategic implications are enormous. Every deep underground facility on Earth would become vulnerable. Iranian enrichment plants, North Korean command bunkers, Chinese silos, Russian submarine pens. The entire logic of underground invulnerability would be shattered. Adversaries would be forced into an expensive and difficult defensive cycle. Deeper digging would no longer guarantee safety. Hardening concrete against blast pressure wouldn't stop the ground around it from shifting. The only potential countermeasure would be building facilities in geologically stable regions, far from any usable fault lines. And even that offers no protection against direct seismic coupling into bedrock. The arms race between bunker builders and bunker busters would enter a phase that favors the attacker. For 80 years, depth was the ultimate defense. If the seismic weapon concept proves real, depth may become a vulnerability instead. No bunker is safe if the ground itself can be turned against it. The era of impenetrable underground bunkers may be ending. The United States Air Force has always had their technological needs catered for by three of the biggest aerial combat vehicle manufacturers in the country: Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin. However, the advent of Elon Musk's SpaceX in 2002 birthed the rise of serious competition in the creation of aerial vehicles. Fast forward to 2025, and SpaceX has reportedly come up with an enticing new bomber plane for the United States Air Force. Could this be the future of bomber jets? Is there a chance that this new cutting-edge bomber sparks a global arms race? Join us as we discuss the brewing bomber between SpaceX and the United States Air Force. Although top high-tech companies like Lockheed Martin, whose Skunk division has played a major role in the creation of some of the United States' greatest combat aerial vehicles, and Northrop Grumman have been at the top end of the pile as the go-to for the America's Department of Defense, the sudden surge of Elon Musk and his SpaceX company has finally brought the heat, the competition needed to give the United States their best. While SpaceX's affiliation with the government might seem sudden, it didn't start that way. It all began with a man who dared to dream, to challenge the old companies like Boeing, who used to champion space travel and the creation of combat and commercial aerial vehicles, while overcoming the high cost of producing rockets, making them reusable and making them safe enough for travel. His name is Elon Musk. Soon he started to get military contracts, earning billions while working with the Pentagon, providing them with a means to launch satellites into orbit. However, the conversation soon moved further than merely launching satellites into the sky, as the Pentagon saw very quickly the potential of Elon's company to create something entirely different from what they used to have, especially since the addition of the behemoth Starship. Now, with Elon's influence in the White House as chief of the Department of Government Efficiency, talks reportedly extended from launching payloads into space for the United States of America to the possible creation of a behemoth bomber that could tower above the United States Air Force bombers like the Boeing B-52 Stratofortress and maybe compete with the Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider. Their rationale was rather simple. Elon is already on the cusp of creating aerial vehicles fast enough to hit Mars by 2026, so why wait for relatively slow bombers, which travel at subsonic speed, when there is a possibility of Elon creating something faster and relatively more lethal? Although SpaceX has never developed a weaponized combat aerial aircraft, being at the adult table at the Pentagon comes with making tough choices and new decisions, something rather different from a favorite niche. Hence, he reportedly agreed, and SpaceX now stands on the precipice, holding the fate of the United States bomber jets in his palms. Although Elon is a genius, what does he know of warfare to be completely entrusted with creating a bomber for the United States? And how does it supposedly compare to his predecessors, especially the B-52 Stratofortress? However, to understand the gravity of Musk's task, we need to look at his competition, the B-52 Stratofortress bomber. The B-52 Stratofortress bomber is a titan of the Cold War, a behemoth that shows up, and the opposition already knows that it is not going to be a good day. As often reported, Boeing really outdid itself on the Boeing B-52 Stratofortress, as it shattered every conventional assumption and belief about the limitations of bombers in the 1950s. The Boeing B-52 Stratofortress is a long-range, subsonic, jet-powered strategic bomber, meaning that it could hit the target not only from seriously ridiculous heights, but it could also have debilitating effects on the opposition, and they would suddenly break their spirits enough to avoid a full-blown or all-out war. For some context, Operation Linebacker 2 in 1972 saw the use of the B-52 Stratofortress bomber in strategic warfare in an attempt to reach a quick ceasefire. The operation took place during the Vietnam War when the United States unleashed the full strength of its air forces, with the B-52 Stratofortress bomber at the very centerpiece. The operation lasted from the 18th of December to the 29th of December, 1972, during the North Vietnamese War. They unleashed more than 20,000 ordnance that was dropped on military and industrial areas in Hanoi and Haiphong, and at least 1,624 civilians were killed. The operation was the final major military operation carried out by the United States during the conflict and the largest bombing campaign involving heavy bombers since World War II, and Vietnam just didn't know what hit them. After the rain of fire from the bomber, their spirits were broken, so they threw in the towel and decided against an all-out as they stood no chance against a bomber. But what makes the B-52 bomber special, and how was it brought into being in the first place? Let's dial back to November 23, 1945, when the AMC, otherwise called the Air Materiel Command, issued desired performance characteristics for a new strategic bomber that could be used as a long-range bomber without needing a base on foreign grounds, which may be controlled by other countries. They wanted the aircraft to travel at least 34,000 feet, with a crew of 5 or more working the gun turret and a 6-man team that will be working as a relief crew. However, as is popular with a combat aerial vehicle, the ordnances and bombs it carries as payload are of grave importance. What's the point of a bomber jet without enough payload to send anyone running? So they asked for an unspecified number of 20mm cannons and over 4,500 kilograms of bombs. The United States Air Force immediately sent out a bid invitation, inviting all the heavyweights of America's aircraft companies, including Boeing, Consolidated Aircraft, and Glenn L. Martin, to submit proposals. Eventually, Boeing won the 3-horse race and called and got a massive $1.7 million to build a full-scale mock-up of the XB-52 and do preliminary engineering and testing. However, they had trouble at first meeting the specification until much later, when they finally created the B-52 version, with the perfect size and ability to take on payloads. B-52 Stratofortress was designed to have swept wings, potted jet engines, and also crew ejection systems in case of a crash, or if it ever happens that they encounter anti-aircraft resistance strong enough to shoot down the aircraft. However, there are different versions of the B-52 with a little bit of difference in their structural designs. For example, on the B-52D, the pilots in the electronic countermeasure team are ejected upwards, while the crew on the lower deck are ejected downwards. However, the tail gunner, who was stationed at the rear end of the bomber jet, had to manually jettison the gun turret before they then crawled out through the opening, making the survivability percentage extremely low. Enter the B-52G, which was released August 31, 1958, as a potential successor to the B-52D. The G version was stronger and better, and the survivability percentage for whoever manned the gun turret was increased by well over 60%, as they could now eject like everyone else. Although the survivability of the crew has been protected by the changes made to the placement of the gun turret, the aircraft still had a common problem: structural fatigue. In material science, fatigue is the initiation and propagation of cracks in a material due to cyclic loading. Once a fatigue crack has initiated, it grows a small amount with each loading cycle, typically producing striations on some parts of the fracture surface. In the aircraft, the fatigue was accelerated by low flying, 8 times more than it was affected when it was flown higher in the sky. For some context, flying really high in the sky is much easier, as there are fewer needs for sharp turns or a need to zoom faster. However, when they fly too close to the ground, there is a need to turn sharper, focus on maneuvering around rocks, and really work the body of the bomber jet. The metal starts to get tired, it cracks, and in some rare cases it bends almost out of shape, requiring the need to fix the plane. The classic wear and tear was starting to make the bomber jets difficult to use for more than 2,000 hours of flight. So in the early 1960s, the United States Air Force created the high-stress program as some sort of checkup program for every B-52 bomber that had been in the sky for over 2,000 hours and was surely going through some structural fatigue. Once they look through the B-52s that had flown over 2,000 hours, they check which one needs to be fixed, and they have stronger pieces added to the body of the bomber, giving it a bit more leverage to fly for that long. As time went on, the Air Force got even craftier, with the creation of wet wings attached to their G and H models of the B-52s. They were called wet wings because they were capable of holding way more fuel than the other models. However, that compromised the structural integrity of the bomber jet even further. The added weight on the wings from the fuel forced the wings to bend out of shape, and they got 60% more fatigue than the B-52D. Once again, the need arose for a solution, so they created the ECP-1050 as a replacement for the wet wings, which increased the durability of the jets and reduced the percentage of quick wear and tear. But there was something more about the bomber, as its sheer size meant that it couldn't perform huge spins or a loop-de-loop like a fighter jet could at an aviation show or in combat. Although the yaw, pitch, and roll were added parts to the bomber plane, it was not built to move like a stunt plane. Instead, the flight controls were focused on vertical stability, even though it has a relatively small, narrow chord rudder, giving it limited yaw control authority. It was almost like having a giant school bus in the air, big, powerful, and with enough room to carry people and ordnances. However, by 1977, they conducted a pacer plank reskinning. The structural fatigue while moving at Mach 1 speed, which is subsonic, was a message to the United States Air Force to make a change. But the United States Air Force continued instead to rely on the jet for its services during war, especially because of its armament as a bomber plane, which is much better than its predecessors. The bomber plan was optimized to carry up to 20 Boeing AGM-69 SRAM nuclear missiles, which are air-to-surface missiles with a nuclear warhead. It had a range of up to 110 nautical miles and was intended to allow United States Air Force strategic bombers to penetrate Soviet airspace by neutralizing surface-to-air missile defenses. It was the perfect response to surface-to-air missiles because it was easier to direct, owing to its precision systems. In a bid to further improve its offensive ability, air-launched cruise missiles, or ALCMs in popular military parlance, were fitted into the B-52 bomber jet. However, after testing of both weapons of mass destruction, the United States Air Force-backed Boeing AGM-86 air-launched cruise missile and the Navy-backed General Dynamics AGM-109 Tomahawk, the AGM-86B was selected for operation by the B-52. However, the continuous development of more models of the B-52 Stratofortress, the Conventional Enhancement Modification, or CEM program, gave the B-52H a more comprehensive conventional weapons capability, adding the modified underwing weapon pylons used by conventional armed B-52Gs, Harpoon and HAVNAP, and the capability to carry new generation weapons including the Joint Direct Attack Munition, or JDAM, and Wind-Corrected Munitions Dispenser guided bombs, the AGM-154, glide bomb, and the AGM-158 JAS-M missile. While the B-52 remains a legendary bomber, the times have changed and technology is moving on once again. Although the B-52 bomber remains in use by the United States Air Force when needed, the Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider has come to take its place in the United States Air Force, and the world's about to be introduced to it. But what makes the Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider special enough to become a welcome addition to the new Air Force fleet? The Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider is another masterclass strategic bomber plane being developed in the United States. It is being developed at the behest of the United States Air Force as a part of the Long Range Strike Bomber, or LRSB program, but this time it is a complete upgrade on what the B-52 Stratofortress was capable of. Imagine a bomber jet capable of stealth operations and the ability to deliver conventional and thermonuclear weapons. Well, with the Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider, no one has to imagine anymore. The classified program started in 2011 when the United States Air Force decided it needed a faster bomber plane with more range. So, as is usual practice, they reached out to the heavyweights in the game, offering them a development contract, which was eventually awarded to Northrop Grumman in October 2015. Of course, every company wanted to be in charge of the future of the Air Force fleet, but someone had to win. This time, it was Northrop Grumman. However, a civil war ensued, with Boeing and Lockheed Martin, who submitted losing bids for the project, filing bid protests claiming they had been wrongfully overlooked for Northrop Grumman. In October 2016, the Government Accountability Office, or GAO, rejected the challenges and sustained the United States Air Force's decision to award the LRS-B contract to Northrop Grumman. The Government Accountability Office report revealed that cost was the deciding factor in selecting Northrop Grumman over the Boeing Lockheed Martin team. The Air Force set up an uphill task for Northrop Grumman, telling them that they needed an addition of intelligence gathering, battle management, and interceptor features to the bomber, and a fifth-generation global precision system that guides the release of bombs, nuclear warheads, and all types of payloads it might be carrying. However, alongside India, which is on the cusp of unleashing its sixth-generation aircraft, albeit a fighter jet, the United States is closing in on releasing the first-ever sixth-generation aircraft, but this time, a bomber jet. Fast forward 5 years after it was commissioned to Northrop Grumman, and the Air Force released new renderings of the aircraft, showing a smaller and lighter design than what is typically expected from a bomber. The sheer reduction in size and distinctive flush in blended inlets, with the two-wheel landing gear design, was a revelation of something never seen before. The drawing shows a smaller and much lighter aircraft than its predecessors, like the B-2 and the massive subsonic B-52 Stratofortress. The world had finally had a glimpse at the possibility of the future of bomber planes, with a huge reduction in size being a topic for discussion. However, just a year later, Darlene Costello, the acting Assistant Secretary of the Air Force Acquisition, Technology and Logistics, confirmed that the first two B-21s were under construction at Plant 42. D-Day came on December 2, 2022, when the first-ever B-21 was unveiled at the Northrop Grumman production facilities in Palmdale, California. At the unveiling, Northrop CEO Kathy Warden said that the B-21 is designed with modular, open systems architecture to allow easy upgrades and, potentially, the ability to export components to foreign buyers. The open systems architecture wasn't particularly the most popular form of building jets in the past, especially when a Cold War hero like the B-52 Stratofortress was built. Boeing at the time had relied heavily on the importance of closed architecture systems, which made fixing and upgrading the early B-52s a nightmare for mechanical engineers, who had the pleasure. The open systems architecture is more like building up a Lego character, and all that needs to be done for a quick fix or an upgrade is to simply remove and replace without a need to tear apart the whole structure in the name of rebuilding. On the flip side, the closed structure system is a packed and sealed deal. A fix would need a complete deconstruction of the object before being rearranged, regardless of how massive or small the problem is. Although the popular reasoning is to view the very first tested aircraft as a prototype, the test aircraft was not deemed as one. Rather, it will be converted to operational configuration by the Air Force after the test flight has been completed. In 2023, the officials of the Long-Range Bomber Program revealed that the fueling and engine tests took place at the end of the year and were successful, leading to the approval of a low-rate initial production, or LRIP, contract being awarded to Northrop Grumman in January 2024, meaning that there would be a small batch of B-21 Raiders in the production phase and about to be released in 2025. However, new speculations about Elon Musk, the Tesla and SpaceX boss, creating a behemoth bomber of his own, sanctioned privately by the Pentagon, seem not to be going away. A shocking tale despite the news of the imminent release of the B-21. Although the mystery remains nail-biting and fairly disturbing, as there are no signs of signed documents or public articles that are published to that effect, the speculations remain intact, with specifications of a possible sixth-generation SpaceX bomber capable of a direct lift off the ground and possibly carrier-based, and also due to be released the same time as the B-21 Raiders. Whether Elon Musk's clandestine arrangement to release a SpaceX bomber in 2025 is real or other media noise, only time will tell. With tensions between China and the United States growing more intense, America's allies, especially Japan, have been left with no choice but to find ways to defend themselves against future threats. Japan has gone the extra mile, developing aircraft unlike anything ever seen in aerial warfare. Armed with technology so advanced that even European nations are eager to collaborate, Japan is finally stepping up to claim its place among the world's military powers. Could this be the beginning of Japan's military resurgence? What can this next-generation fighter truly do? Join us as we reveal the groundbreaking details of the new bombers Japan has just added to its arsenal. After the Second World War, Japan became very cautious about rebuilding its military, especially its air force, which now appears outdated compared to that of other countries. The memories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki still remind everyone of how terrible war can be. Japan's new constitution, drafted with the help of the United States after the war, took a firm stand against war. In Article 9, Japan relinquished its right to wage war or maintain military forces for aggression, limiting its forces to self-defense purposes only. Japan also made a deal with the United States for protection. American troops, including air forces, stayed in Japan to defend the country. This allowed Japan to rebuild its cities, businesses, and industries without undue concern for war. But as time went on, growing problems with China and fears about North Korea's missiles made Japan change its thinking. China's rapid rise in both economic and military strength began to appear more unfriendly toward Japan. Because Japan supported Taiwan and worked closely with the United States, China hit back with trade bans and boycotts. Behind the scenes, China also used cyber attacks and spying. They broke into Japan's government and business systems, attempting to steal sensitive secrets related to defense and technology. China sent more ships and planes close to Japan's borders. They started doing regular live-fire drills and even launched ballistic missiles near Taiwan, one of Japan's close partners. With danger rising, Japan recognized the need to enhance its air force, rather than relying solely on others, especially since China and Russia are now introducing more advanced fighter jets. In a big move, Japan's leaders have recently agreed on new rules that would enable the country to respond more effectively to threats. Former Prime Minister Fumio Kishida stated that, with missiles becoming faster and more deadly around the world, Japan must strengthen its defense to deter future attacks. This decision also followed the United States urging of Japan to assume a greater role in containing China's expanding military. This new plan will increase its defense budget to 2% of its economy by 2027, doubling the amount it currently spends. With more money, Japan will buy advanced weapons from the United States like Tomahawk missiles and work on building its top-level fighter jets, super-fast missiles, and armed drones. Initially, Japan sought to acquire the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor. However, the United States refused to sell the jet to any other country, thereby keeping its technology safe and leaving Japan at a disadvantage. So Japan made a bold choice to design and build its sixth-generation fighter jet. It's a challenging project, but if they succeed, Japan could end up producing one of the world's best warplanes and become a major player in the arms market. Between 2009 and 2010, Japan's Ministry of Defense took a deep look into fighter jet technology. From this work came the idea of the I-3 fighter, which stands for Informed, Intelligent, and Instantaneous. This jet was designed to be a stealth fighter capable of detecting and engaging other stealthy planes. It would come equipped with a powerful radar system, smart sensors, and the capability to communicate with external drones and sensor stations during battles. All these features were meant to give Japan a big advantage in controlling the skies around its region. The I-3 fighter could also carry new types of weapons, such as laser guns, known as light-speed weapons, that could instantly destroy incoming threats. As expected, China responded to Japan's plan with harsh words, accusing Japan of fabricating the China threat as a pretext for building more weapons. However, Japan is pushing forward, determined to rely more on itself and defend its territory. To turn their ideas into reality, Japan created a test plane called the Mitsubishi X2 Shinshin. The X2 was designed with a look similar to that of modern fifth-generation fighters, such as the Lockheed F-22 Raptor. Its size was comparable to that of the Swedish Saab JAS 39 Gripen. Measuring approximately 14 meters in length with a wingspan of 9 meters, it weighed almost 13 tons and was equipped with strong turbojet engines featuring 3D thrust control, which provided it with remarkable agility and the ability to fly at supersonic speeds. One of the most notable features of the X2 was its fly-by-optics system. Instead of using traditional cables, it utilizes optical fibers, which enable faster data sharing and better noise handling. Its radar, called the multifunction RF sensor, was built with an active electronically scanned array, known as AESA technology, allowing it to switch across different signals for jamming, communication, and possibly even using microwave weapons. Another notable feature was its self-repairing flight control system. If the plane's flight surfaces got damaged, it could detect the problem and adjust by using the parts that still worked, keeping the jet flying safely. For its test flights, the X-2 used two XF-5 engines. The work was led by Japan's Acquisition Technology and Logistics Agency. They made a small demo plane called the Advanced Technology Demonstrator, or ATDX for short, which flew 34 missions in 2016 and 2017. ATLA also ran 14 other programs focused on building the key components needed for a real stealth fighter, such as improved sensors, faster data links, and concealed weapon bays. The prototype was a big success. Many of the new systems tested on it will likely be used in Japan's future 6th-generation fighter jet. The twin-engine plane had a sleek and smooth shape, standing about 4.51 meters tall. Its cropped delta wings and special extensions allowed it to keep flying safely even at high angles. Two vertical fins at the rear helped improve both its flight capabilities and stealth. It was piloted by a single pilot and featured a retractable tricycle landing gear setup, smooth control surfaces, and two rectangular air intakes positioned adjacent to the cockpit. The special S-duct design also made its airflow smoother and more conducive to speed. After the success of the X-2 project, Japan's Ministry of Defense started working on the Mitsubishi FX in 2020. This new twin-engine stealth fighter is designed for air battles and is planned to be even larger than the F-22, which has earned it the nickname Godzilla. Its large size would give it a longer flight range and the ability to carry a greater number of weapons. It is also designed to have a robust network system and carry more missiles than the F-35. Engineers experimented with various exterior designs using 3D models and specialized computer programs. The primary goals were to make it extremely fast, highly agile, and exceptionally stealthy. To make it lighter and more flexible, the FX would ditch hydraulic systems and utilize electronic components instead. It would also use strong glue molds instead of regular bolts and screws. Two XF-9 engines would power the plane, providing it with more than 20 tons of thrust. These engines would have special 3D thrust nozzles to help them turn more quickly and remain hidden. For its weapons and defense, the FX would feature an advanced mix of sensors to track and engage stealthy enemy planes. It would carry an active electronically scanned radar, a passive radio wave sensor, and an infrared camera. All of these would utilize gallium nitride technology to better detect targets that are normally difficult to see. The new jet would also feature a sophisticated radio system that could jam enemy signals worldwide, enabling it to intercept and counter incoming missiles. Pilots would receive a high-tech helmet equipped with a wide field of view, dual-eye displays, colorful screens, voice control, and 3D sound. The FX's stealth features would include twisted air ducts, hidden weapon bays, materials that absorb radar waves, and new metamaterials to make it even harder to detect. A plasma stealth system would generate short plasma bursts to deflect radar waves, thereby further protecting the plane. Beyond conventional armaments, the FX will be armed with a microwave cannon to disrupt incoming missiles. It will also have the ability to deploy combat support unmanned aircraft drones, serving as loyal wingmen to the fighter. These drones will aid in target identification, munition deployment, and the deflection of incoming missiles. If the FX Godzilla lives up to even a fraction of its potential, it could provide the Japanese armed forces with a formidable warplane surpassing anything in today's skies. Furthermore, it has the potential to propel Japan into the global weapons development market, solidifying its position as a military manufacturing powerhouse. Another important job for the FX Godzilla is to replace Japan's current F-2 fighter jets during the 2030s. It's clear that Japan also draws some ideas from the US regarding the FX's design and functionality. Japan even bought some F-35s to use alongside the FX once it is ready. In 2022, rumors started flying that Japan and the UK might join forces by merging Japan's FX project with the UK's Tempest fighter program. By December 2022, the partnership was officially announced, and Italy joined the team as well. Initially, the UK sought to collaborate with France and Germany through a program called the Future Combat Air System. However, after numerous arguments and delays, the UK ultimately decided to collaborate with Japan and Italy instead. This new collaboration is a significant win for both parties. Japan secures strong partners who can help it sell military planes overseas, an area where it lacks substantial experience and expertise. The UK gets serious partners without the problems it faced before. Together, they aim to develop a powerful sixth-generation stealth fighter that could revolutionize the future of air combat. Big companies were given key tasks. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries from Japan and BAE Systems from the UK are leading the project. BAE is also working on the main body of the jet. Japan's IHI Corporation and Rolls-Royce are building the engines. Italy's Leonardo is responsible for the electronics, while MBDA UK handles the missile systems. After Japan and Britain teamed up, they also began working together on radar systems through a project called Jaguar, an acronym for Japan and Great Britain's Universal Advanced Radar Frequency System. The new fighter will be about 30% bigger than the Eurofighter Typhoon. Its weight without fuel will be close to that of the American F-15 Eagle. The plane will have a sharp delta wing with a 50-degree sweep. The wingspan will be around 54 feet, and the total wing area will be about 12,200 square feet, almost the same as the wing size of an Airbus A320. A model of the new fighter was first shown at the Farnborough Air Show in 2024. It features a trimmed delta wing, which enables it to fly faster, travel farther, and carry more weapons and fuel. However, it may not be as adept at quick turns and sharp maneuvers as Japan's original FX design. British aviation journalist Gareth Jennings pointed out that the GSAP's broad wings look a lot like those of the old American F-111 Aardvark bomber. The F-111 used to fly low to stay hidden from radar, but the GSAP will mainly depend on stealth and long-range missiles to remain safe. This plan is similar to the FB-22, a bomber version of the F-22 Raptor that never entered service. Unlike the FB-22, which was built solely for support, the GCAP is designed to engage other planes and strike ground targets. All three countries working on the GSAP already use F-35B stealth fighters, except the UK, which also flies the F-35A. However, they still sought a jet that could carry more weapons than the F-35 and could be sold to other countries without the stringent restrictions associated with the American F-22 Raptor. Japan also plans to fit the GSAP with its high-tech missile systems. These will include the MBDA Meteor, the Spear 3, and the ASM-3, which is a Japanese anti-ship missile. Japan and Britain are also collaborating to develop a new medium-range air-to-air missile, known as the Joint New Air-to-Air Missile. Rumor has it that the JN-8M will feature a radar system manufactured by Japan at the front and a Meteor ramjet engine from Britain at the rear. Still, it may be slower than the Meteor, which can travel at over Mach 4. The JN-8M's top speed is expected to be around Mach 3.5. As for the schedule, the first flight of a Tempest concept demonstrator, a prototype built to test new technology, is planned for 2027. According to the UK Ministry of Defence's Director for Future Combat Air, this test plane will give a strong idea of what the final GEAP fighter will look like. Work on the joint engine demonstrator began in 2024, with the UK investing an initial £30 million in planning, digital design, and innovative construction methods. An additional £200 million from the UK will be allocated toward building a full-size engine for testing. This work will also create many skilled jobs, including at Rolls-Royce's Filton site in Bristol. The first flight of the Tempest is expected to happen in 2035. It will eventually replace the Eurofighter Typhoon in Italy and the UK, as well as the Saab Gripen in Sweden. During its production, they plan to use 3D printing to make parts. Leonardo is also building a new type of radar system for the Tempest. Instead of using a single large radar, this new system will utilize numerous small antennas and mini receivers to collect vast amounts of information from both the sky and the ground. Like other sixth-generation jets, the Tempest is likely to utilize artificial intelligence to control drones, building upon the concept of the loyal wingman. The cockpit will feature augmented reality, making the plane even more advanced. Fast progress and teamwork between countries will be crucial if the Tempest hopes to keep pace with China and Russia, who are also developing powerful new jets. Still, not everyone is pleased about Japan's more ambitious military plans. Kyoji Yanagasawa, a former defense leader, is one of the few who have spoken out. He says that having more potent weapons will not scare away enemies. Instead, he thinks Japan should focus more on talking and making peace to avoid wars. Yanagasawa worries that if Japan builds up its army too much, it could cause more trouble than it solves. He believes that growing the military might deter neighboring countries and make Japan a more attractive target. His view focuses on the difficult choice Japan faces: how to maintain safety without exacerbating tensions with its neighbors. Many experts believe Japan's push to enhance its military capabilities stems from a rapidly changing world. With China growing stronger and North Korea building up its nuclear weapons, Japan feels it might be left exposed. There are also concerns that the United States, Japan's largest ally, may not always be able to fully protect it, especially if problems erupt in different parts of the world simultaneously. The debate over Japan's new defense plans shows the complex situation the country faces as it seeks to strike a balance between peace and security. While many people agree that Japan should be able to defend itself more effectively, others are concerned about potential future developments. If Japan overextends its military, will it truly make the country safer, or will it merely add more tension to East Asia? Yasuo Hasebi, a constitutional law expert at Waseda University, mentioned how hard it is to know if a strike is truly preemptive until after it happens. He also argued that the government could claim that simply possessing these weapons for defense, even if they are never used, still aligns with Japan's peace-focused constitution. Although the law isn't clear on the matter, the government firmly insists that its plan is legal. Hasebi noted that because the government claims it is allowed, questioning it becomes very difficult. Surprisingly, there has been little resistance from Japan's public, media, courts, or opposition parties regarding whether this new military path aligns with the Constitution. The government has also not clearly explained how its actions comply with the law. From the U.S. perspective, Japan's growing military presence can be viewed in two ways. Zach Cooper, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, notes that Japan is bolstering its weapons and defenses, which the U.S. already supplies through its alliance with Japan. He believes part of the reason is Japan's fear that America might not always be a steady partner. That fear partly comes from the time when President Donald Trump questioned the value of old alliances. Japan's plan also shows that it learned from Ukraine's fight against Russia. Experts believe that when a country demonstrates its commitment to self-defense, its allies are more likely to step in and provide assistance. Japan hopes that by demonstrating its ability to stand up for itself, it will receive even more substantial support, especially from the United States. China has developed a weapon that threatens to transform the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. The People's Liberation Army Air Force has long pursued the development of a next-generation stealth bomber designated the Xian-A-20, an aircraft designed to give Beijing its first dedicated strategic bombing capability with the range, stealth, and strike power to threaten American bases, naval formations, and even the continental United States itself. After nearly a decade of secretive development, satellite imagery emerged in 2025, suggesting that the H-20 is ready to dominate the skies. What capabilities does the H-20 possess that have American planners genuinely concerned? How did China achieve such rapid progress in developing a complex stealth bomber? Join us as we examine China's H-20 stealth bomber program and why it has caught the United States' attention. For the entirety of the post-Cold War era, the United States has maintained a monopoly on operational stealth bomber technology. The Northrop Grumman B-2 Spirit, which was developed during the 1980s and first entering service in 1997, represented a technological achievement so advanced that no other nation could replicate it for decades. The B-2's flying wing design, sophisticated low observable materials, and advanced avionics systems provided American forces with an unparalleled capability to penetrate contested airspace, strike heavily defended targets, and survive enemy air defenses that would destroy conventional aircraft. For nearly 3 decades, the B-2 remained the world's only operational stealth bomber, giving the United States an exclusive capability that underlay much of American military superiority globally, and particularly in the Pacific. This American monopoly over stealth bombing capability reflected the enormous technological and industrial challenges involved in developing such a complex weapon system. Creating a stealth strategic bomber requires mastery across multiple cutting-edge domains simultaneously. The aircraft must feature aerodynamic shaping designed specifically to minimize radar cross-section, with every surface optimized to reflect radar waves away from enemy detection systems. The materials must incorporate advanced composites and radar-absorbing coatings that reduce the aircraft's detectability to electromagnetic surveillance. The engines must be designed with inlet and nozzle treatments that shield hot engine exhaust from infrared detection while maintaining the power necessary to propel a massive aircraft across intercontinental distances. The flight control systems must integrate complex avionics designed to operate in contested electromagnetic environments where adversaries attempt to jam communications and confuse navigation systems. And the aircraft must achieve this while carrying massive weapons payloads across ranges exceeding 8,000 kilometers without refueling, a combination of requirements that no other nation had successfully achieved. China's historical approach to military aviation reflected this technological gap. The People's Liberation Army Air Force operated the Hongzhou H-6 medium-range bomber, a licensed production variant of the Soviet-era Tupolev Tu-16 Badger, a design that first flew in 1942. Despite decades of incremental upgrades and modifications, the H-6 and its various derivatives remain subsonic aircraft with no stealth characteristics whatsoever, dependent on long-range cruise missiles for strike capability rather than penetrating air defenses through speed or maneuverability. The H-6 variants could carry air-launched ballistic missiles with intercontinental range, enabling them to strike distant targets, but the bombers themselves lacked the penetrating capability to survive modern air defenses. This technological limitation reflected broader Chinese military doctrine that emphasized missiles over bombers, valuing standoff strike capabilities delivered by unmanned systems over the complex challenge of developing crewed strategic aircraft. Beginning in 2016, this strategic calculus shifted. People's Liberation Army Air Force General Ma Xiaotian announced during an Air Force Open Day that the PLAAF was undertaking development of a next-generation long-range stealth bomber. The announcement came amid broader Chinese military modernization and reflected strategic recognition that completion of a modern nuclear triad, comprising intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and long-range bombers, required fielding a credible air-breathing delivery system for strategic weapons. The H-20 program emerged as China's response to this strategic requirement, representing a commitment to developing a weapon system that would give Beijing parity with the world's most advanced military powers. For years following the initial announcement, the H-20 program remained shrouded in mystery. No official images were released, no detailed specifications were provided, and the Chinese government offered only vague statements about development progress. Instead, information came through controlled leaks, satellite imagery, speculation by defense analysts, and occasional mentions in state media. In 2021, a recruitment video released by the PLAAF featured animated depictions of a flying wing aircraft described as the H-20. The silhouette bore striking resemblance to the American B-2 Spirit, featuring the distinctive diamond shape and cranked delta wing platform characteristic of modern stealth bombers. In 2022, 2 separate prototype designs surfaced online, generating intense speculation about whether these represented genuine H-20 designs or merely conceptual artwork. Throughout 2024, Chinese officials grew increasingly bold in teasing the H-20's development. In June 2024, then PLAAF Deputy Commander Wang Wei stated that the new stealth bomber would be unveiled soon, and that there were no technological bottlenecks remaining in its development. This statement suggested that the PLAAF had overcome the major engineering challenges involved in creating a stealth aircraft and was preparing to transition the program from development into operational testing and eventual production. Coming from a senior PLAAF officer, The claim carried significant weight, suggesting that Chinese military leadership possessed confidence in the project's progress. Then in late 2024 and early 2025, satellite imagery and photographs began circulating, suggesting that the H-20 might have already conducted flight tests. The most significant evidence came in the form of leaked satellite imagery, showing what analysts believe to be the H-20 undergoing operations at a test facility near Xinjiang province. The aircraft in the imagery displayed characteristics consistent with earlier artistic renderings. A large flying wing design with a cranked delta planform, a central fuselage bulge to house weapons bays and fuel, and what appeared to be two separate internal weapons bays, a critical feature for stealth aircraft seeking to minimize radar cross-section by storing ordnance internally rather than on external hardpoints. More provocatively, photographs and video footage posted on Chinese social media in January 2026 appeared to show a large aircraft conducting flight test operations. While not officially confirmed as the H-20, the aircraft in the imagery displayed characteristics consistent with expected H-20 design features. The videos showed a large, diamond-shaped aircraft with multiple engines, but producing a single contrail, a phenomenon that defense analysts associated with advanced engine technologies designed to minimize infrared and visible signatures. The aircraft appeared to demonstrate stable flight characteristics and was photographed from multiple angles, suggesting sustained, controlled test operations rather than a single brief sortie. American military officials initially expressed skepticism about claims regarding the H-20's operational status. In December 2024, the United States Department of Defense published its annual assessment of Chinese military power, stating that the H-20 was not expected to enter operational service until the 2030 decade. Pentagon analysts, when interviewed privately, expressed doubts about Chinese technical capabilities and suggested that engineering challenges in developing stealth aircraft might delay or derail the program entirely. An unnamed Department of Defense official quoted by Breaking Defense stated that China had encountered significant design challenges and that the H-20 would likely prove inferior to American stealth bombers, particularly the forthcoming B-21 Raider. However, the satellite imagery and video footage that emerged in late 2024 and early 2025 shifted American assessments. The evidence suggested that China had progressed further than official American intelligence had acknowledged. Rather than existing only as designs and computer models, the H-20 appeared to be entering actual flight testing. Rather than facing insurmountable engineering obstacles, Chinese engineers appeared to have solved fundamental technical challenges involving stealth shaping, material science, and flight control systems. The timeline suggested that operational deployment might not be as distant as American officials had publicly claimed. The H-20 design reflects characteristics consistent with 5th and 6th generation stealth bomber requirements. The aircraft is expected to be a subsonic flying wing design featuring a distinctive crank delta planform optimized for low radar observability. The estimated range exceeds 8,500 kilometers, with some American intelligence assessments suggesting ranges exceeding 10,000 kilometers without refueling. The payload capacity is assessed at 10 to 15 tons, sufficient for multiple air-launched cruise missiles or conventional precision-guided munitions. The design incorporates two internal weapons bays, critical for maintaining stealth by storing ordnance internally rather than on external hardpoints that would dramatically increase radar cross-section. Critically, the H-20 is designed for sustained operations in contested airspace where enemy air defense systems operate continuously. This represents a fundamental departure from the H-6 and other legacy Chinese bombers, which rely on standoff missile delivery from beyond air defense range. The H-20's penetrating strike capability, its ability to fly through defended airspace without being detected or successfully engaged, transforms Chinese military doctrine and capabilities. Rather than launching cruise missiles from beyond air defense coverage, the H-20 could itself penetrate and survive hostile air defenses, delivering weapons against targets that would otherwise remain beyond reach of standoff delivery systems. The strategic implications of an operational H-20 extend far beyond the Asia-Pacific region. With a range exceeding 10,000 kilometers, the H-20 could strike targets throughout Asia, parts of Europe, and significant portions of North America. Combined with air-launched cruise missiles carried in internal bays, the H-20 could threaten American military bases in Japan, South Korea, Guam, Australia, and the Philippines. More provocatively, if the H-20 entered service with extended-range air-launched cruise missiles, it could deliver strikes against the continental United States, reaching targets in Alaska, Hawaii, and potentially the American mainland. This capability would complete China's nuclear triad: intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and long-range bombers, matching the strategic forces of the world's most advanced nuclear powers. The H-20's emergence as an operational system would represent a dramatic shift in strategic balance. Currently, China's strategic deterrent relies heavily on land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles and an emerging submarine-launched ballistic missile force. These systems, while formidable, are vulnerable to American anti-access and area denial strategies designed to degrade Chinese missiles on the ground or in their base areas or intercept them during flight. The H-20, operating from dispersed bases and capable of maneuvering to avoid air defenses, would provide a more survivable second strike option. The combination of the H-20 with modern air-launched cruise missiles would give Beijing a flexible strategic deterrent less vulnerable to American preemptive attack than current systems. Beyond nuclear deterrence, the H-20 would provide conventional strike capabilities that would fundamentally challenge American military operations in the Pacific. The H-20 could conduct long-range bombing against American bases, carrier strike groups, and logistics facilities throughout the region. The aircraft's stealth characteristics would make it difficult to detect, track, and engage with existing air defense systems. Paired with long-range precision-guided munitions, the H-20 could conduct deep strike missions against hardened targets that have heretofore been largely invulnerable to Chinese conventional air power. The emergence of such capability would force American military planners to reconsider basing strategies, force dispersal, hardening requirements, and air defense postures that have been optimized for regional conflicts against opponents lacking sophisticated air threats. The technical achievement that the H-20 represents is also significant. Creating a stealth strategic bomber requires capabilities across multiple domains: aeronautical engineering, material science, avionics integration, and manufacturing processes. Only the United States has ever successfully brought such a complex system from concept through development to operational service. Russian attempts to develop stealth bombers have largely stalled, with Moscow relying on legacy Soviet designs for its strategic bombing force. European nations have focused on fifth-generation fighters rather than strategic bombers. The fact that China appears to have successfully engineered a stealth bomber design and possibly already conducted flight tests indicates that Chinese capabilities in advanced aerospace technology have reached a level that was previously assumed to be unique to the United States. This technological achievement likely benefited from external assistance in the acquisition of technology. American intelligence agencies have long indicated that Chinese engineers obtain information regarding the B-2 Spirit through espionage. In the early 2000s, Noshir Gawadia, a lead engineer on the B-2 program at Northrop Grumman, was indicted for selling detailed information about stealth bomber design and construction to China. While Gawadia was eventually convicted and imprisoned, the damage to American security had been accomplished. The information he provided gave Chinese engineers detailed knowledge of stealth design principles, material selection, manufacturing processes, and testing methodologies that would otherwise have required decades of independent development through trial and error. Additionally, China has benefited from advances demonstrated in its fifth-generation fighter programs. The Chengdu J-20 and Shenyang J-35 fighter programs have provided operational experience with stealth shaping, radar-absorbing coatings, internal weapons carriage, and sensor integration across all aspect fighter operations. The technologies refined in fighter development, materials science, shaping optimization, and manufacturing processes translate directly to bomber applications. The knowledge accumulated through producing hundreds of fifth-generation fighters provides China with industrial experience and supply chain capabilities that facilitate rapid scaling of stealth bomber production once the basic design is proven. The American response to China's stealth bomber development centers on accelerated development of the Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider, the next-generation stealth bomber designed to succeed the aging B-2 Spirit in B-1B Lancer. The B-21 represents a fundamental advance over its predecessor, incorporating design features specifically optimized for operations in the Indo-Pacific against advanced Chinese air defenses. The aircraft features a flying wing design similar to the B-2, but incorporates advances in materials, avionics, networking, and open systems architecture that make it more capable, more adaptable, and easier to upgrade than the B-2. The B-21 differs from the B-2 in fundamental ways. The aircraft is smaller and lighter, designed for efficiency rather than maximum payload, reflecting modern preferences for standoff, delivery of precision weapons rather than massive internal bomb loads. The avionics suite incorporates modern digital architecture, enabling rapid integration of new sensors and weapons, contrasting sharply with the B-2's analog systems that are difficult and expensive to upgrade. The open systems architecture allows for rapid incorporation of new technologies as they mature, extending the B-21's operational relevance across the decades of its service life. The aircraft is designed for distributed operations, capable of operating from diverse basing locations and integrating seamlessly with allied forces through advanced data sharing and networked warfare concepts. In January 2026, the Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider conducted its second flight from Edwards Air Force Base in California, demonstrating the continued progress of the program toward operational service. The second test aircraft, designated RQ-183, represents one of several test aircraft participating in developmental flight testing. Air Force officials indicated that subsequent aircraft would arrive in 2026, with at least 2 additional test aircraft expected to support accelerated evaluation of the bomber's performance, handling, and mission systems. The aircraft conducted at Edwards are built to production standards, differing from test airframes in previous programs that were typically skeletal structures lacking combat systems and capabilities. The Trump administration's fiscal year 2026 budget request allocated $10.3 billion to the B-21 program across research, development, procurement, modernization, and military construction categories. This represents a substantial increase compared to previous budget cycles and reflects high-level strategic prioritization of the bomber program as a response to emerging threats from China and Russia. Notably, the Department of Defense allocated an additional $4.5 billion specifically for expanding production capacity at Northrop Grumman's Plant 42 facility in Palmdale, California, where B-21 aircraft are manufactured. This funding expansion enables ramping production rates and accelerating delivery of aircraft to operational squadrons. American military officials stated that the B-21 could achieve initial operational capability in 2027, subject to successful completion of developmental testing. However, significant questions persist regarding the total number of B-21 aircraft the Air Force intends to acquire and the pace of production. Currently, the Air Force plans to purchase 100 B-21 aircraft, a number that experts from the Heritage Foundation, Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments, and other organizations argue is dangerously low. These analysts recommend purchasing 145 to 200 B-21 aircraft to provide adequate forces for strategic deterrence, while maintaining sufficient numbers to sustain losses in potential conflicts. The shortage of planned stealth bombers creates a fundamental strategic problem. A single B-21 operating alone lacks the redundancy and surge capacity necessary for modern military operations. When 7 B-2 bombers were required to deliver specialized penetrating munitions during Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025, when B-2 forces struck Iranian nuclear facilities, the disparity between desired forces and available forces became apparent. The small size of the operational B-2 fleet forces lengthy missions to be conducted sequentially rather than simultaneously, extending campaign timelines and reducing flexibility. The planned 100 aircraft B-21 force would suffer from similar constraints. Moreover, the aging B-2 Spirit and B-1B Lancer aircraft that currently constitute the American Strategic Bomber Force require increasing maintenance and face growing reliability challenges as their systems age. The B-2, first delivered in 1989, is now over 3 decades old. While the aircraft continues to perform effectively, component reliability degrades with age, and the specialized maintenance requirements for stealth coatings and low observable materials consume substantial resources. The B-1B, introduced in 1985, faces similar age-related challenges. Replacing these legacy aircraft with the B-21 will require acquiring aircraft in sufficient numbers, not only to replace the aircraft being retired, but also to actually expand the operational fleet to meet current and projected operational demands. The implications of China's H-20 development extend beyond the bilateral competition between American and Chinese military forces. The emergence of a second stealth bomber nation signals the proliferation of advanced military technologies beyond the traditional domain of Western nations. Stealth technology has long been an exclusive capability of the United States, granting American forces extraordinary advantages in contested environments. China's successful development of stealth bombers demonstrates that this American monopoly has definitively ended and that other nations will follow in developing their own stealth aircraft in the coming decades. The United States is building a bomber that flies at more than 3,800 miles per hour and returns to base. No nation has ever done this before. While the B-21 Raider hides from radar, this aircraft outruns the interceptors, giving defenders seconds to react instead of minutes. DARPA revealed the program in February 2025, with a prototype scheduled to fly by 2030. The race to build it will determine whether American air power keeps its edge for another generation. For decades, American bombers survived inside defended airspace by avoiding detection entirely. The B-2 Spirit proved this concept in combat over Serbia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Its flying wing shape and radar-absorbing materials rendered it nearly invisible to the threat rings it penetrated. Only 20 were ever built. The B-21 Raider represents the next evolution. It's a subsonic, sixth-generation stealth strategic bomber designed to strike without warning. The Air Force expects it to form the backbone of penetrating strike for the next 30 years. It flies below the speed of sound because stealth, not speed, serves as its survival mechanism. The radar cross-section is so small that most threat systems can't generate a firing solution in time. However, the global air defense situation has shifted in ways that challenge the stealth-alone assumption. Russia has now deployed the S-400 Triumph across more than 10 countries with a 400-kilometer engagement envelope. The S-500 Prometheus, which is now entering service, claims a 600-kilometer range and is marketed as a stealth killer, capable of engaging the F-22, the F-35, and hypersonic weapons alike. Low-frequency and multi-static radar systems are reducing the advantage of pure stealth geometry. China has constructed dense air defense networks across its eastern coast and contested territories. A 2023 simulation from Chinese researchers suggested that their new stealth aircraft could find and kill a B-21 using hypersonic missiles. That claim may be propaganda, but it signals the direction of the threat. Stealth remains important, and the B-21 is still necessary to the force. It isn't sufficient alone. The Air Force is already bridging this gap with an interim weapon. In April 2026, a B-1B Lancer was photographed carrying the AGM-183AAR-RW, or Air-Launched Rapid Response Weapon, for the first time. The weapon weighs roughly 5,000 pounds and accelerates beyond Mach 5 after release. The B-1B itself is detectable, but the weapon is fast. This is a stopgap, not a strategy. The B-1B fleet is scheduled to retire by 2037, and no replacement exists that combines heavy payload with sustained high-speed flight. America needs a bomber that doesn't merely hide from radar, it needs a bomber that makes radar irrelevant. On February 13, 2025, DARPA's Aerospace Projects Office announced a program hidden from public view for years. APO keeps so low a profile that its existence is omitted from some DARPA organizational charts. It manages the most classified aviation projects in the Department of Defense, and the announcement appeared quietly in a program brief. DARPA classifies the Next Generation Responsive Strike Program, known as NEXT-RS, as a Y-plane concept. That designation means an experimental aircraft, not a production system. The concept describes a large, reusable, air-breathing, hypersonic strike aircraft designed to fly above Mach 5 and return to base. It is an aircraft that takes off from a conventional runway, carries payload inside defended airspace, strikes its target, and lands to be refueled and flown again. Most hypersonic weapons today are rocket-powered and cannot be recovered. An air-breathing hypersonic aircraft uses atmospheric oxygen, which means it can carry more payload. It also means the engine must function across pressures and temperatures that no operational bomber engine has ever faced. No nation has demonstrated a reusable hypersonic bomber under its own power. The X-51A Waverider achieved Mach 5.1 in 2013, but a B-52 dropped it at altitude and the scramjet burned for only 210 seconds. Next, RS must sustain hypersonic flight across entire missions, not just brief test windows. That gap between demonstration and operational capability is what the program is built to close. The program targets a flying prototype by 2030, following the collapse of an earlier DARPA effort called Mayhem that never reached flight. Next RS is the second attempt, and the timeline is aggressive. DARPA does not build operational squadrons. It builds prototypes that prove whether a technology can transition to the Air Force for production. The contrast with the B-21 Raider is the point of the concept. The B-21 survives by shaped geometry and radar-absorbing materials that avoid detection. Next RS survives by overwhelming speed. Even if a defense radar sees it, the interceptor may not have time to launch, guide, and hit a target moving at more than a mile per second. The bomber does not need to be invisible. It needs to be uncatchable. The aircraft is reportedly designed around a propulsion system producing 30,000 to 38,000 pounds of thrust. It uses a turbine-based combined cycle engine, which transitions from conventional turbojet to ramjet and then scramjet as speed increases. A bomber that field crews can't repair is a bomber that can't deploy to a theater of war. Every jet engine ever built represents a fixed compromise. A turbofan performs efficiently at low speed but produces diminishing thrust above Mach 2. A ramjet functions only above the speed of sound and cannot propel a vehicle from a standstill. A scramjet sustains hypersonic flight, but needs to reach Mach 5 before ignition. Each mode works in isolation, and none can carry a bomber from runway to target and back. The turbine-based combined cycle engine bridges these three worlds. It combines a conventional turbojet for takeoff with a dual-mode ramjet and scramjet for supersonic and hypersonic flight. DARPA recognized this gap decades ago. In 2016, the Advanced Full-Range Engine Program selected Aerojet Rocketdyne to build a full-scale TBCC demonstrator for flight from 0 to Mach 5. Engineers proved each mode individually for missiles and test vehicles. The transition posed the real challenge. Around Mach 2.5 to 3, the turbojet must shut down and the ramjet must ignite without interruption because the airflow does not pause. The pressure, temperature, and velocity inside the combustion chamber shift in milliseconds, and an imperfect handoff blows out the flame. Above Mach 5, the ramjet transitions to scramjet mode, where air moves through the combustion chamber faster than the speed of sound. The engine must survive pressure changes, thermal loads, and aerodynamic shocks that would destroy a conventional turbofan in seconds. At Mach 5, the airframe's skin temperature exceeds 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat softens aluminum and weakens titanium. The leading edges and engine inlets bear the brunt of this heating. Nexus is reportedly using metallic construction with advanced thermal management rather than exotic composites. The designers chose this deliberately. Conventional alloys can be inspected, repaired, and replaced by maintenance crews in a theater of war. A carbon fiber skin that delaminates at 3,000 degrees is useless in the field. An aircraft that requires a climate-controlled hangar after every flight is not a bomber. It is a laboratory specimen. The X-51A Waverider achieved Mach 5.1 in 2013 with 210 seconds of scramjet burn, a record that fell far short of the minutes or hours a bomber mission demands. The Waverider was dropped from a B-52 and accelerated with a solid rocket booster before the scramjet even started. Next, RS must take off from a runway, accelerate through every engine mode, sustain hypersonic cruise, decelerate, and land. It must exceed the Waverider's benchmark by orders of magnitude. The entire aircraft is designed around an engine that can transition, sustain, and survive. Without a reliable TBCC engine, NextRS is only a concept. With it, America builds the first reusable hypersonic bomber in history. The SR-71 Blackbird flew at Mach 3.2 for 3 decades across reconnaissance missions over hostile territory. Hundreds of missiles were fired at it by Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean defenses. None hit their target. Geometry explained the misses. By the time a surface-to-air missile reached the Blackbird's altitude, the aircraft already lay miles away. The missile chased a ghost that never occupied the coordinates the radar predicted. NextRS aims to replicate that physics advantage at more than twice the speed. At Mach 5, the bomber covers approximately 1 mile every second. A modern air defense battery detects the target, computes an intercept solution, launches a missile, and guides it through mid-course and terminal phases. The system relies on radars, command centers, and launchers that are sometimes separated by dozens of miles. Against a subsonic stealth bomber, that chain takes several minutes. Against Mach 5, it may have less than 2 minutes. That assumes the radar maintains a clean track through the plasma sheath that forms around a hypersonic vehicle, which is not guaranteed. The distinction between them matters most. The B-21 survives by avoiding detection, while NextRS survives by making detection irrelevant. Radar may see it, and the S-500 may track it, but the operator has no time to decide, no time to launch, and no margin for error. The interceptor missile may be faster than the bomber in raw velocity, but it must be launched, guided, and steered across a closing geometry that is shrinking at over 1 mile per second. The defense system does not merely need to detect the target. It needs to detect, decide, launch, and hit before the bomber releases its weapons and turns for home. The B-1B, carrying an ARRW hypersonic missile, is the halfway point in this evolution. The bomber is detectable at long range by modern radar networks, but the weapon is unstoppable once released. NextRS completes the logic. The aircraft and the payload arrive at hypersonic velocity. The enemy's warning time is compressed from minutes to seconds. There is no standoff distance because the bomber itself is the weapon. America's bomber force has always relied on 2 survival mechanisms. Stealth avoids the fight entirely. Standoff weapons keep the aircraft outside the threat ring. NextRS adds a third path. It goes straight through the ring faster than the ring can close. That changes the math of every war plan written in the Pacific and in Europe. DARPA and the Air Force want a prototype in the air by 2030. 5 years separate the program announcement from first flight. The timeline compresses to an almost impossible span for an aircraft that must solve propulsion, thermal, and aerodynamic problems that have defeated engineers for half a century. A first flight in 2030 leaves almost no margin for the setbacks that every experimental aircraft program encounters. The B-21 Raider was publicly revealed in 2015 and made its first flight in 2023. 8 years passed between the reveal and the takeoff. Northrop Grumman refined the subsonic stealth technology in the B-21 over decades. NextRS attempts something no nation has yet demonstrated. It would become a reusable, air-breathing hypersonic bomber that takes off and lands under its own power. The X-51A Wave Rider set the previous record in 2013, reaching Mach 5.1 with just over 3 minutes of scramjet burn. That falls far short of what a bomber mission demands. NextRS must handle the entire flight profile from runway to landing under its own power, including acceleration, cruise, and deceleration. It must push far beyond the Wave Rider's limited benchmark. If the program slips, more B-1Bs carrying hypersonic missiles will fill the gap. That works as a solution, but it requires a detectable aircraft to deliver a weapon that outruns interceptors. If NextRS succeeds, American air power gains a third leg. It adds not just stealth penetration and standoff missile strike, but direct, time-critical, hypersonic bombardment from a reusable platform. DARPA does not build fleets. It builds prototypes that answer whether a technology can work. The Air Force decides whether to buy it. The 2030 prototype flight will not be the end of the story. It will be the moment when the Air Force learns whether the future of bomber design is hypersonic or whether the physics still belong to missiles alone. The United States has dominated the skies for 70 years through a combination of stealth, skill, and technological surprise. Next-RS is the next chapter. It does not replace the B-21. It represents a new class of aircraft built around a different physics principle. Speed is not just performance. In the 2030s, speed may be survival itself. Across decades, the cargo plane was the invisible workhorse of American military power. Then the Air Force did something that nobody in any rival capital had fully anticipated. It turned those cargo planes into bombers, transforming the most common aircraft in the American fleet into one of the most dangerous strike platforms in the world. How does a system that fits on a standard cargo pallet turn a transport aircraft into a weapon capable of firing 45 cruise missiles in a single pass? And why does China's military consider this capability one of the more credible threats the United States has developed in years? Join us as we break down how America transformed giant cargo planes into missile bombers that are ready for battle. On December 16, 2021, a cargo aircraft took off over the Gulf of Mexico on what looked, to anyone watching, like a routine training flight. There was no fanfare, no press release issued in advance, no public announcement of what was about to happen. The aircraft was an MC-130J Commando II, a special operations variant of the same Hercules transport that has been hauling cargo for the United States military since the Eisenhower administration. It carried a pallet. The pallet carried a production JASSMER cruise missile with a live warhead locked inside a deployment box that had been loaded through the rear ramp like any other piece of cargo before the aircraft taxied out and took off. At the designated point over the water, the ramp opened, the pallet rolled out, a parachute snapped open and stabilized the box as it descended. The missile was released from its cell, fell nose down, unfolded its wings, ignited its engine, pulled up out of its dive, and flew toward a vessel target on the Eglin Air Force Base overwater test range. It found the target, detonated, and the ship was destroyed with the cargo aircraft nowhere in sight. That test proved something that changed the strategic calculus for every Air Force planner in the world who was paying attention. A transport aircraft, an aircraft with no weapons pylons, no bomb bay, no radar signature that distinguishes it from the thousands of other cargo flights operating in any given theater on any given day, had just conducted a precision cruise missile strike. The system that made it possible is called Rapid Dragon, and the implications of what it demonstrated that day over the Gulf of Mexico are still reverberating through defense ministries from Beijing to Moscow. The United States Air Force fields the most capable bomber force on Earth. The B-52 Stratofortress, in service since the 1950s and still flying with upgraded systems, can carry up to 20 air-launched cruise missiles combined from its wing pylons and bomb bay. The B-1B Lancer carries 24. The B-21 Raider, the newest bomber in the American inventory, is still in its early operational phase. These are extraordinarily powerful and also extraordinarily scarce. The entire American bomber fleet numbers roughly 141 aircraft across all three types. In a sustained high-intensity conflict against a peer adversary, the kind that defense planners are currently required to plan against, that number becomes a hard ceiling on how many standoff strike missions the Air Force can execute simultaneously. At the same time, the Air Force operates a vastly larger fleet of cargo aircraft, more than 228 C-17 Globemaster IIIs, more than 300 C-130 variants in active, guard, and reserve service combined. These aircraft fly every day to every theater, carrying every kind of cargo the American military depends on. They are ubiquitous in a way that bombers are not. They operate from shorter and less developed runways, from forward operating locations that a B-52 cannot reach, from airfields that an adversary's targeting planners would never think to add to their priority strike lists, because nobody has historically treated a cargo terminal as a threat. Rapid Dragon changes that calculus entirely. The system is, at its physical core, a palletized munitions deployment box, a modular container built to fit on the same standard airdrop pallet that American cargo aircraft have been using to deliver equipment and supplies for 80 years. The deployment box holds cruise missiles in individual launch cells, arranged in configurations of 4, 6, or 9 rounds per pallet, designated simply as 4-pack, 6-pack, and 9-pack modules. The entire system is self-contained. The cargo aircraft requires no modification whatsoever to carry it. A standard loadmaster rolls it aboard, secures it to the cargo floor, and the aircraft takes off looking exactly like it would on any other mission, because in every practical sense, it is. The operational sequence is straightforward in concept and remarkable in execution. At the designated release point, the rear cargo ramp opens and the pallet is pushed out into the air at altitude. A parachute deploys immediately, stabilizing the deployment box as it descends. Once stable under canopy, the missiles are released sequentially from their cells in quick succession. Each missile falls nose down, unfolds its wings, ignites its engine, pulls up out of its descent, and begins powered flight toward its target. The entire sequence from pallet release to missiles in powered flight takes seconds. By the time it completes, the cargo aircraft has already left the area, carrying no weapons, leaving no signature of anything other than a routine transport mission. The missiles being deployed are variants of Lockheed Martin's AGM-158 Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile family, the JASSM and its extended range variant, the JASSMER. These are not improvised weapons adapted for an improvised system. They are the same precision cruise missiles carried by B-52 and B-1B bombers, the same missiles that the Air Force has spent decades integrating into its most capable strike aircraft. The JASSM-ER carries a 1,000-pound class penetrating warhead and is specifically designed for low observability. Its shaping and materials reduce its radar cross-section during flight, making it difficult for air defense systems to detect and engage on terminal approach. Its publicly stated range is at least 575 miles, and the JSS-XR variant entering production extends that reach to approximately 1,200 miles. A single target can be struck from distances that put the launch aircraft completely outside any realistic threat envelope. A single C-130 Hercules carrying 2 six-pack pallets can release 12 JASSM cruise missiles in one pass. A C-17 Globemaster III, with its substantially larger cargo bay, can carry 5 pallets for a total of 45 missiles, more than twice what a B-1B bomber carries, and more than 3 times what a B-52 can deliver in a single mission. The destructive potential loading into the back of what appears to be a standard transport flight is, by any measure, extraordinary. What Rapid Dragon does to an adversary's targeting problem is fundamental. A conventional bomber is a known quantity. It operates from a small number of known major air bases. Its presence in a theater signals offensive intent. Its departure from a base can be monitored by satellites and radar. An adversary planning a preemptive strike against American strike capacity knows exactly where to look. The Air Force has publicly described distributed operations from austere forward locations as a priority precisely because concentrating aircraft at a small number of known major bases presents an inviting target for adversary precision strike campaigns in the opening hours of a conflict. A B-52 requires a 10,000-foot concrete runway to operate. A C-130 operates from 3,000-foot stretches of less developed surface. The number of potential operating locations for a C-130 is not dozens. There are hundreds scattered across every theater in which the United States and its allies operate. When any one of those locations could theoretically serve as a Rapid Dragon launch point, when the same aircraft that delivered fuel and spare parts to a forward base yesterday could return tomorrow with pallets of cruise missiles aboard and fly a strike mission before returning to logistics duties, the adversary's targeting planners face a problem that has no clean solution. Cargo aircraft are everywhere. The signature of a transport mission is indistinguishable from the signature of a strike mission until the ramp opens at altitude and the pallet rolls out. A Chinese analyst writing in a People's Liberation Army journal described Rapid Dragon as giving American forces a method to launch strikes from just outside a defensive perimeter while operating with aircraft that would be hard to track and difficult to distinguish from routine airlift activity, crediting the system with genuine cost-effectiveness compared to building additional dedicated bombers, and assessing that it would meaningfully increase the agility and suddenness of American distributed strike operations. General Mike Minihan, then leading Air Mobility Command, described the system's potential in terms that went well beyond cruise missiles. Palletized effects, he said, could include decoys to confuse adversary radar systems, electronic jamming systems to suppress air defenses, sensors to extend battlefield awareness, and search and rescue packages, in addition to the kinetic strike capability that the cruise missile demonstrations had already proven. The deployment box is a modular container. What goes inside it is a function of what the mission requires. Efforts are already underway to integrate JDAMER, precision-guided bombs, the ADM-160 miniature air-launched decoy, the long-range anti-ship missile variant of the JASSM family, and other munitions into future versions of the system. The concept that began with cruise missiles is expanding toward a general-purpose effects delivery architecture that can be reconfigured for entirely different mission types, depending on what is loaded at the base before departure. The Air Force's fiscal year 2026 budget reflects the seriousness of the investment. The service intends to purchase 389 JASSMs in 2026 at a cost of approximately $1 billion, alongside 118 long-range anti-ship missiles for an additional $431 million. The Air Force has also identified the per-unit cost of the existing JASSM line as a constraint on the volume it can field, and is actively pursuing lower-cost cruise missile alternatives specifically designed for mass employment through Rapid Dragon. A high-value JASSMER is the right weapon for a heavily defended, high-priority target. For scenarios requiring volume, saturating an adversary's air defense radar network with simultaneous incoming contacts, or generating the kind of mass fires that overwhelm a defensive system's engagement capacity, a cheaper missile that can be purchased in the thousands rather than the hundreds changes the operational calculus substantially. The current American bomber fleet could more than triple in effective strike capacity if the full cargo fleet were available for Rapid Dragon employment. Over 200 C-17s capable of carrying 45 missiles each. At full theoretical employment, that represents a strike capacity measured in the thousands of cruise missiles per wave, a volume of simultaneous fires that no existing air defense network anywhere in the world is designed to absorb. The cargo plane has spent 80 years carrying the things armies need to fight. It is now, in a very direct and tested sense, one of the things armies fight with. And in the mathematics of distributed operations, mass fires, and contested airspace that defines modern large-scale conflict, that shift matters considerably more than the unremarkable appearance of the aircraft delivering it. The Kremlin has finally decided to go head-to-head with the top nations like the United States and China in producing a new stealth bomber that is about to change the game. The concept of war has historically favored the team that dominates the skies, and Russia seems well poised to strike fear into the hearts of potential opponents with its new bomber. How did the world react to the sight of the behemoth? Could Russia be on the verge of triggering another arms race? Join us as we discuss the amazing features of Russia's new stealth bomber. Rumors of Russia's new stealth bomber have taken a stranglehold of worldwide military space since the early 2020s. However, the wait is finally over. It is coming, and it is a monster. Unlike the very first types of Russian bombers, including the Tupolev Tu-95 and the Tupolev Tu-160, which rely on brute lethal force and speed as their greatest features, the new Russian stealth bomber, PAKDA, relies on invisibility as its greatest feature. Just how does anyone fight a bomber they cannot even see? Although rumors of this bomber became prominent in the 2020s, the Kremlin has secretly had it in the works since the late 1990s, when the Russian government decided on a need for a new strategic bomber with different types of technical and tactical requirements compared to its predecessors. Having drawn out a design for the bomber, the Russian Air Force needed to come to a decision about which company should be given the privilege of building the Kremlin's next-generation bomber. After many deliberations, they came to a unanimous decision to have the bomber built by Tupolev Design Bureau in 2007 before the finances were released to fund the project in 2008. However, questions begin to linger about the details of the design, especially after rumors of a possible replication of the Tupolev Tu-160, owing to its ability to travel at supersonic speed. But it was soon debunked by a public address from then Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, who implied that the new bomber would be a completely different design, which was an exciting prospect as well, since the United States and China had just unveiled their B-21 Raider and the H-20 respectively. Although there has been no press release or any form of publication confirming that the new stealth bomber was a direct geopolitical message to the forces of the West, which have consistently flexed their military might, there are theories stemming from Russia that the new bomber was an example of Russia taking the lead in the arms marathon that has silently been afoot since the World War. From Vladimir Putin's interview, it was almost too easy to tell that this was more than just some aircraft. It was a geopolitical weapon with a direct message of mutually assured destruction to the West. While the Raiders in the H-20s have dominated aerial warfare for a long time, owing to their beastly presence in combat, how much of a threat is Russia's new PAK-DA bomber? Like General Giulio Douhet once said, "He who controls the air controls everything," and Russia is definitely not oblivious to the fact. Ergo, the deliberation to create a bomber that matches up to the intensity of Raiders and H-20s. The Russian Air Force had quickly figured out that aerial warfare was moving slightly away from speed and creeping towards more intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR warfare. Hence, they followed suit with the proposal of creating their own stealth bomber, capable of producing both hunter and killer functions. For some context, the Tu-160, manufactured by the same company in charge of the new stealth bomber, was designed to be a hunter mission bomber aircraft. It is a supersonic, variable sweep-wing, nuclear-capable heavy strategic bomber designed for hunter missions. It was commissioned to service in 1987, serving as both a conventional and nuclear bomber, following the requirement of the Soviet Union in 1967. The Tu-160 was designed with the perfect aerodynamic cheat code with the deliberate attachment of a variable geometry wing. The variable geometry wing, or swing wing in popular parlance, was designed to optimize all levels of movement, ranging from takeoff and landing to cruising. For instance, when the wings are in full extension, they give low-speed stability and do not require the regular length of a runway to take off or land. Hence, it makes it easier for the Tu-160 bomber to operate from varied airfields and carry huge payloads. While there is a huge chance that the bomber's aerodynamic wings could be optimized or manipulated to perform hunter missions, its sheer size negates its potential impact on avoiding the A2AD aircraft defense mechanism used by most top nations. Although the swing wings are relevant to attaining low-speed stability, when they are swept back, the aircraft becomes more aerodynamic and can attain and sustain supersonic speed, with little to no drags, as the aircraft travels at Mach 5. The Tu-160's ability to perform a wide range of missions because of its flexibility has made it a threat to the West and the big players in the Indo-Pacific regions, like China. Its mission flexibility gives it wiggle room to go from subsonic speed to supersonic, making it the best of both worlds, and op countries around the world have struggled to keep up with it. However, that just wasn't enough for the Kremlin. They wanted more, or maybe less, considering the fact that they want the PAK-DA to focus on stealth more than speed, and reaching that decision by enforcing the decision that it is only retrofitted with subsonic speed. On September 3, 2009, the Russian Defense Ministry awarded Tupolev Design Bureau a 3-year research and development contract to undertake studies for the new long-range bomber. According to the President General Designer of Tupolev, Igor Shevchuk, this should be a fundamentally new aircraft based on conceptually new solutions. However, for a country with the number of aircraft and bombers that the Kremlin possesses, there is always going to be that one voice who questions the need for more. For some context, on June 12, 2012, then Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin questioned the need for a new long-range bomber, pointing out the immense progress that Russia and their archenemy, the West, were making in aerial and anti-missile defense technology, reinforcing his point that spending billions of taxpayers' money on an aircraft when they know the difficulty of breaching these new aerial defenses. Although he had made his point, the Chief of the General Staff, Nikolai Makarov, responded by stating that the Kremlin's intention to put in the work and build this bomber revolves around creating a monster behemoth in the air that is much more superior to the United States. His statement was indirectly backed up by President Vladimir Putin on the 14th of the same month, who hammered on the importance of getting a new long-range bomber regardless of the impact of the Tupolev Tu-160s. By 2013, the PAKDA team had finally reached a decision to focus on the stealth options on the PAKDA, while also giving it a subsonic flying wing. Although there were published articles going against the decision to only add a subsonic flying wing, the rationale behind it was pretty simple. Russia already has bombers capable of subsonic and supersonic speed. Hence, they wanted something different in speed and size, but just flexible enough to perform both hunter and killer missions in a single run. The PAKDA's flying wing is a tailless, fixed-wing aircraft that has no definite fuselage, with its crew, payload, fuel, and equipment housed inside the main wing structure. However, it would have various small protuberances such as pods, nacelles, blisters, booms, or vertical stabilizers. The design gives the aircraft a flat shape while flying at the speed of a regular commercial plane, making it nigh impossible to detect by radar. However, the aircraft is much more potent than the deliberately shunted speed limit on the subsonic level. For a hunter mission, its ability to travel at the same speed as an airplane while having a flat shape, looking almost like a single wing hovering in the skies, gives it the advantage and leverage to get closer to its mark when it needs to perform killer missions. This design struck the perfect balance between stealth missions and killer missions. Although the designs bordered along the lines of perfection, there was one hiccup. How exactly does the flat-back plane hide all of its payload without drag and also be able to deploy hypersonic missiles without getting spotted? The Russian Defense Ministry had designed the flat-back bomber with stealth and killer missions in mind. Ergo, they found ways to integrate the fuselage and other parts of the aircraft into the flying wing, drawing inspiration from the single-bay design of the American B-2 Spurt, their direct competitor. But how does a subsonic flying wing aircraft carry and unleash a payload of hypersonic weapons and hit its target? The rationale was rather simple. Since the missions were flexible, meaning that the aircraft could be on a double mission in one run, hunting and killing its targets, the payloads are tucked neatly in the aircraft's body, making it impossible to spot even with A2AD aerial defenses. While the plane flies at subsonic speed and gets closer to its mark, the bay opens and the hypersonic missile is dropped on its target. However, the missile isn't fired from the aircraft. Instead, it is released at normal speed. Then the engine on the missile sets it up to go faster than Mach 5 and explodes on impact. The aircraft was designed to carry payloads the size of the KH-47M2. The KH-47M2 is a Russian air-launched ballistic missile with an estimated range of 460 to 480 kilometers and a reported top speed of Mach 10, which is twice the speed of sound. It can carry either conventional or nuclear warhead and can be launched by two 22M3 bombers, MiG-31K interceptors, modified Su-34 fighter bomber, and very soon the PAK-DA. Even before the advent of the PAK-DA, the KH-47M2 had already been deployed on numerous war missions by the Russian Air Force. However, its most recent deployment has taken the most sting out of the West in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. The United States has openly supported Ukraine and given them war support to keep them in a fight with Russia, who apparently has the stronger military and better military weapons on land, air, and the seas. However, during the Biden-Harris administration, President Joe Biden, in March 2022, confirmed that Russia deployed hypersonic missiles in Ukraine, which he described as almost impossible to stop. The message was clear. Russia has a missile that is nigh untrackable, making them even more dangerous than they were. And this time, they are in the process of manufacturing a flying wing subsonic bomber that easily escapes the radar and is capable of carrying the KH-47M2. This perfectly balanced bomber was more than just technology. It was a message well received from Russia to the rest of the world. However, it wasn't until April 2014 that the head of Russia's United Aircraft Corporation, otherwise called UAC, Mikhail Pogosyan, announced that the Tupolev Design Bureau had finalized the design and that the project was moving to the intermediate phase, signaling the completion of the design and construction of a prototype. And that was Russia's first hiccup. The Russian Defense Ministry demanded 5 billion Russian rubles to prepare the Kazan Aircraft Production Association plant in Kazan. As expected, the old voices of reason, who believed that the country already had enough long-range bombers, were back asking the same questions. However, the Kremlin responded by releasing the requested 5 billion Russian rubles, which were allocated to reconstructing and re-equipping the Kazan Aircraft Production Association plant in Kazan. While it was widely reported in Russia that the first full-size model of the bomber was built, amongst various scale mock-ups of different configurations on March 1, 2017, it wasn't released openly, hence the public only had verbal knowledge of the aircraft. It wasn't long before doubt had started to set in, with rumors of PAKDA being a ruse making the rounds. However, in July 2018, the United Engine Corporation, otherwise called the UEC, and Tupolev, the company that was commissioned with the responsibility of building the PAKDA, revealed that they had just signed a contract for the creation of the bomber's power plant. However, questions lingered on how they decided to create the power plant. Was it going to be some new groundbreaking idea, or was it going to come from an already established engine? Soon there were released reports that suggest a possible upgrade from the Kuznetsov NK-32 engine. In the same year, the Kremlin reportedly allocated 8 billion Russian rubles for the development of this new engine, which was contracted to JSC Kuznetsov in Samara. Although the specifications of the engine have been a well-guarded secret, its potential performances have been heavily publicized. The engine is rumored to provide the PAKDA with the required force to perform a 30-hour non-stop mission without having to refuel. But it gets even better, as it also comes with a temperature-resistant feature, protecting it from the effects of a nuclear explosion and a service life between 12 to 21 years. While the engines remained in construction, the PAKDA's final draft was finally approved, and the construction in the plant began in late 2019. Although Tupolev kept the construction process away from the media, Russia's state-owned news agency, the TASS, reported on May 26, 2020, that the very first PAKDA, which will be the finished article, was already in construction and will be finished in early 2023. Although Tupolev were the leading constructors, they had help from companies like NPP's Vesta, which announced at the 2021 Max Air Show that his company was in the process of completing the construction of the PAKDA's ejection seats and hoped to hand them over to Tupolev in 2023, the proposed date for the first sighting of the massive aircraft. While speculations of the KH-47M2 being the main hypersonic weapon to be fitted into the PAKDA's weapons bay had consistently made the rounds on the internet, on August 2021, it was announced that a new long-range, nuclear-capable hypersonic cruise missile, the KH-95, was under development to be fitted inside the PAKDA's weapon bay. Although the Kremlin has earmarked aerial warfare dominance, specifically over the United States, as the reason for funding the creation of the PAKDA, there is growing evidence that the possible integration of a hypersonic missile carrying a nuclear warhead might be an overkill, but is capable of changing aerial warfare forever. Could Russia finally take the giant leap over the United States and China, who have recently been at the top of the food chain in aerial combat? Could the creation of the PAKDA spark a new global arms race? While the world holds its breath in grievous anticipation of Russia's release of the PAKDA, the United States and China have decided to raise the stakes even further, especially the United States, who are now looking to upgrade their long-range bombers. But just how does their Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider fare, in contrast with the PAKDA? America developed its Long-Range Strike Bomber, or LSB program in 2011, with only one goal in mind: aerial dominance. Over the years, aerial warfare has hit a fever pitch, and there is no bringing it down. Hence the hot pursuit of top countries who are looking to not only get in on the action, but be at the very top of the food chain. Hence America's decision to come up with the B-21 Raider. The Raider is proposed to be a stealth intercontinental strategic bomber that can deliver conventional and thermonuclear weapons. Named Raider in honor of the Doolittle Raiders of the Second World War, the B-21 is meant to replace the Rockwell B-1 Lancer and Northrop B-2 Spirit by 2040, and possibly the Boeing B-52 Stratofortress after that. Although, just like the PAKDA, the B-21 Raider has been touted for a release in 2023, especially since the first flight of the Raider already occurred on November 10, 2023, and 3 of them, which were considered airworthy, were involved in program testing in September 2024. However, neither nation has fully released their new bombers. Although there are reports of technical delays, like with the PAKDA, where the sanctions following the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine, starting the Russo-Ukrainian War in 2022, have been rumored to halt their momentum, and the B-21 Raider has been touted to be undergoing early-stage flight testing. There are other geopolitical rumors that have effortlessly made the rounds in the media. For some context, there are speculations that both countries are in the middle of a game of chicken, seeing who blinks first, with hopes that the first release is assessed by the other country, who then upgrades theirs to remain on top of the food chain. Although the speculation seemed to have stuck because neither nation has presented their aircraft in the timeline that they proposed, Russia has come flying out of the gates in a rush to defend their position. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov has openly discussed the common struggles with schedules around the world, but he assures Russia and the entire world that the sanctions following the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine would not affect the timing of the creation of the PAKDA, as the bomber does not contain any foreign components. Although he made these bold claims in 2022, promising that the aircraft would be completed by 2026, with a prototype ready by 2023, as of June 2025, there are still no reports of a prototype. While the world waits for this new stealth subsonic behemoth bomber capable of hosting and launching hypersonic missiles with nuclear warheads, the potential reaction of other top countries remains to be seen, as aerial warfare might change forever. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.